Hi there. Welcome to a Little Wayward podcast coming out of St. Therese Institute of Faith and Mission. My name is Nick, and beside me is not Jim, but Gabby. Hi, Gabby. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. A little tired. Last podcast we had, I was talking about we were awaiting a new little person coming into the world, and since that last podcast, we have had a new little person come into the world, and he's just getting fussy in the nighttime. I've also decided to give up coffee, so that's interesting. So I'm tired today, but I'm doing pretty jovial all the way around. So usually we have on this podcast myself and Jim. Jim is off busy doing a few things, preparing for the incoming students for the incoming year. So we do have Gabby with us here today, and she's going to be one of our third-year students this year. So we thought we would kind of have her on as a guest and just talk about a few things for the coming year, some themes that are kind of coming up. So Gabby, who are you?
What a big question.
Yeah, I know. I mean, don't answer cosmically, but just particularly, who are you? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, sure. Well, as you've already said, Nick, my name's Gabby. I'm from Saskatoon. And I will be doing the STAY program again this year. This will be for my second time.
Mm-hmm. So this is like the third year, but a fourth time.
Yeah.
Well, not a fourth time, the third year, that would be 12 times, right? Wait, no, I'm not sure. I'm multiplying those for some reason.
Yeah, well, I wouldn't know because I'm terrible at math, so that's another thing about me.
Okay, that's why you're a College of the Arts kind
Yeah.
of thing, right?
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. But anyways, so you're from Saskatchewan?
Yeah.
Okay.
Saskatoon. Mm-hmm.
Saskatoon. I think I mispronounced that. There's the caffeine withdrawal coming in. So yeah, tell us a little bit about the STAY year, if you will. What does STAY stand for?
Sure. STAY stands for St. Therese Apostolic Year Student. And essentially, our main role is to accompany the students that are here doing the program, whether they're in the first year or the second year. And it's just living with all the students and helping them in any way that they need. And just growing in friendship with one another, and doing other little tasks that need to get done.
Mm-hmm. We have lots of little tasks for you guys throughout the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys do anything from helping facilitate a retreat to taking some of your own courses, and then you even facilitate one or two courses, almost like a teacher assistant kind of thing, right?
Yes. Yeah. So we facilitate the charisms workshop.
Okay.
And holistic sexuality class. And we'll facilitate different book discussions.
Oh yeah, no, I think I've definitely sent one or two of those down your line as well.
Yeah.
So whenever I'm feeling lazy, or rather whenever I have stuff to do. So that's cool. So you're coming back for another year. And in fact, that's I think what we're going to take this podcast and do. We're going to be reflecting on this time period here at St. Therese. We're filming this podcast about mid-August, and we're about to welcome in all the other third-year students next week, and then we have another welcoming of the second years, and then the first years, the grand finale at the beginning of September. Now, reflecting on an upcoming year for St. Therese is something we normally do anyways every year, because it's always, kind of holding our breath and going into the plunge, because it's a pretty intense program. But this year in particular, there's a few different considerations that are making it a very interesting spiritual question for us. So one big thing that's coming up on everyone's minds right now, it's almost like this little nagging voice at the back of everyone's minds about the COVID-19 pandemic, right? So that's still technically going on, and there's concerns about what the fall is going to look like with that. So we are starting a program like this in the middle of that happening. That's one consideration. There's also economic concerns. People are concerned about that, the effects of the pandemic upon our economy. And the other consideration that St. Therese is, in the eyes of many, kind of a waste of time in a sense. Because this is just a year or two long formation program, and we have transfer credit agreements with our institutions, but it's it's kind of like a year that you take for personal formation, and it has to be in and of itself. It doesn't really grant you much more than that. So there's a bunch of things like why is everyone wanting to do this? So I think it breaks down to for us to, Gabby, like maybe one question that's very particular for you, and then I can try tackling it too, is why are you coming back to St. Therese? What are your spiritual motivations with that? And are there any reflections you can have about taking on anything that seems, perhaps like a waste of time or tenuous in this kind of a circumstance, where the future is uncertain and stuff? So maybe that's a good question to start with. And I know I just landed you with a humdinger, so that's pretty big.
Yeah. Well, I guess the first thing that comes to mind is that nothing done for the Lord is wasted. Yeah, and I think even at certain points in the year, even when, we're not in the middle of a COVID pandemic, it's always good to be reminded of that, because you can get into doing chores and doing homework assignments and, living with 40 other people or 30 other people or however many people. And sometimes you can ask yourself that question, like, what's the point of this? And I know I've asked myself that here several times. But yeah, just being reminded that nothing is wasted when it's done for the Lord. And I think that really comes down to why I'm even coming back here for the fourth time as a stay student. Just needing to lean back in trusting in God that this is where He's calling me. And more particularly, this is the poor that He's calling me to come and serve. And yeah, because the poor takes many different forms, I guess. No,
it's cool. There's a lot to kind of unpack there, actually. So I really like your statement, like for when you do something for the Lord, nothing is wasted. Something in our North American mindset that we can sometimes get caught up in is we're all about productivity. We're all about efficiency. We're all about going and doing the next thing. Go, 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 go. And so a lot of the time, whenever we're thinking of it like institutions or like our life track, we constantly think of it in stages. Well, if I when I grow up, I want money. And so, I'm going to try and find the way that will get me the fastest to that goal. But with what you seem to be suggesting is for the Christian, there's a bit of a different rubric for how you kind of evaluate your terms of success, right? So what would you say then is the rubric for the Christian?
Oh, man.
Yeah, I know. Another humdinger. Why not? Or what you say it yourself, nothing for the Lord is wasted.
Yeah.
Like what's behind that statement for you? What does that mean to you?
Yeah, okay, sure. I guess it's just being able to offer it up, as my mom would say. But yeah, just recognizing that everything that I do, whether it's something that I love to do, like painting, for example, or something that I don't love to do, like vacuuming, I don't know, whatever it may be, anything can be offered up to the Lord as a prayer. And whether that's, going to help me grow in my own holiness, or help others grow in their holiness, and being able to offer up on behalf of them. And so if I'm coming at it, I guess, with that rubric, if that's my rubric, if I'm coming at it like that, then nothing needs to be wasted. Now, yeah, living sometimes is easy to forget that, but I don't know, being here after all these years, I think that's something that that's come to just deepen, I guess, and the roots have set in, I think. I think something else too is just learning about detachment in this time. Even just in coming to St. Therese, that's something that I think I've had to keep learning. Because, before I came here in my first year, I wanted to go and be a teacher and just get my degree done so I could teach, and then well, here I am 4 years later. Well, 5 years since I graduated, and yeah, so it's been a lot of letting go, but then the Lord, satisfying to some degree those desires that I did have. Yeah, I can't remember why I was talking about that, but.
No, that's okay. Yeah, we all tend to begin something and then we end up not really remembering where we began. That's why this podcast is named A Little Wayward after all. We always get a little off track.
Perfect.
It was one of the reasons why we chose that title. Jim and I have that tendency. No, you were talking, like what you seem to be saying actually is that if you're doing something for the Lord and it's precisely what the Lord's calling you to do, then that is enough for the Christian in many ways. And so when we consider, say, like you entering this year at St. Therese, you felt some kind of a call. Yes. And you see the work here that's being done as worthwhile. And so that's sufficient. Now, have you had your own concerns about coming back and stuff too?
I don't know. I think I've had a particular grace of trust in this time. And I've been here, and I know how much prayer and discernment is going into things on the end of staff and community. And so I think there was just a level of trust that I had coming into this time, knowing that the decisions that will be made are going to be done out of love for the students and out of, and keeping their security in mind. And so, yeah, I don't know, just trusting in that and trusting that God is, if this is where he's calling me to be, then this is where I need to be, and the rest he'll take care of.
Well, yeah, no, there's that simple trust in the Lord, and there's a saying that we use in the program here from time to time, which is, the Lord is calling us to be faithful, not successful necessarily.
Yeah.
And that cuts to the core in many ways to myself as well, because I'm like, well, why not both? Why do I have to choose one or the other,
Yeah.
But it comes down to it. Sometimes there is there is this moment where if you're constantly looking for success, if you found something good, sometimes the good, it makes demands on you that will actually have to mitigate your success per se. So for example, for me, whenever I chose to become married to my wife and we started having a family, well, suddenly, after having 2 kids now, I imagine it'll get even worse when we have 3 and 4, but my sleep is no longer as straightforward as it used to be. A lot of my time is spent, raising my kids and communicating with my wife and stuff. In terms of worldly success, my time period in the day to actually go and be productive, in a sense, has actually been diminished, So there is this good that I have chosen, but success is waning to the side. So if I'm constantly adjusting my life in terms of being successful, I'm going to end up having a bit of a breakdown, or my family is going to suffer for it, or you get the point. It has this thing that drains on you. Whereas if you're faithful, you are actually attentive to the good in the situation, to your vocation, your calling. So if I'm focused on the good, even though raising a family might be a waste of time or unsuccessful in terms of the productivity, it's actually very spiritually productive, which is fascinating. I would say that my family is making me a better human being. Maybe not all the time, and maybe by extension a better theologian. But it's funny. There's always that joke about mechanics in their cars. No offense to any mechanics out there, but a mechanic's car is almost always the worst because they know just how far they can push it, before fixing the muffler or something like that. So the theologian's faith life. Anyways, I don't know. I make that joke all the time. But so for me, going into this year, it's a very real test of that, because when I consider all the things that are happening in the world, it's a little too easy to allow that to dictate your decisions. And I'm like, well, I'm not just thinking of success here. I'm thinking also of security. And, security is a worthy question, but with, so the types of considerations that are happening now, no matter what I decide, there's going to be issues, And so for me, when I look at St. Therese starting up again, I see this as a worthwhile work for its own sake. I see it as being faithful. I see it as being something that's offering good to the students. And so I'm sort of in a similar boat. I'm not very concerned. There's always a bit of natural human worry in there, and there's maybe rational concerns about the way things are going. But there's a lot of peace in that because, it's the Lord who holds the future. That's another saying we have around here, and I think that works really well. I think that tends to, waylay a lot of concerns. So I don't know if you have any comments on that. Is it like a similar kind of disposition as yourself, or?
Yeah, I would say it's similar, and I don't know. I think too, just being able to recognize that there'll be particular graces this year that wouldn't have been there otherwise, because God is always sustaining us for what we need to be able to take on whatever comes up, and so just really, leaning back into that and again coming back to trust and having confidence that God will take care of us in that, and but then there's all the little things that we have to work out, and part of the reason why I'm even here early, but
Yeah, no, that's great. Actually, what you just said there, I think, is also pretty powerful, because sometimes when we get sent into something that we're uncertain about, we have this tendency to divorce God's hand from it in our lives. So I'm thinking, for example, the classic, the apostles in the boat when Jesus is sleeping, and they're freaking out, and they wake him up because they're just like, do you not care that we're going to die? Is pretty much what it kind of comes out to. With more or less, that's not an exact quotation. But, then Jesus says something along the lines of, ye of little faith. Did you not know that I would not let my friends perish, or something like that? Again, not exact quotation. So then he calms the storms. What's interesting is that in that passage, the sea was actually a symbol of death and chaos for the Israelites, because it was always, and there was even something even more primordial about it, like this pre-formed matter that even goes back to the book of Genesis. It's something that is fundamentally mysterious and ominous for Jews. And so for Jesus to actually illustrate control over even the seas, it shows just how much control of the situation he has. And, there's a reflection on baptism and all the rest and come from it. But I think we can probably apply that to any stormy walk of life we step into, because it's almost like, rather than God being farther and farther away in the midst of a crisis or hardship, it's almost like that's precisely where his power is going to be the most manifest. And so you see that over and over again in the Gospels. And, I've always been comforted by the fact that if God is calling us to do something, he's going to equip us to do that thing, because God is not a malicious God who, calls us to do something and then rejoices in seeing us fall apart. He's not like I was as a kid, where I'd tease my siblings and try and make them do something and then laugh my butt off whenever they ended up not doing the thing. So, anyways, so I wasn't very Christ-like as a kid, but I think that whenever he calls us, he equips us, and that's always important to kind of have in mind. So I think that's a wonderful insight. So with all this stuff upcoming, do you have any reflections almost that you can kind of have on particular challenges that you're going to see in the year ahead? We have some idea of where it's going to go forward, but what's some of your concepts of some challenges or blessings that you think might be coming forward out of this? Because we've mentioned that there's going to be particular graces. Do you have any anticipation of that?
As I work on the things that I'm working here, and as I'm talking with students that will be joining us this coming year, and I keep thinking of how much of a family spirit that we'll have. At least I hope that that'll happen, but I'm pretty confident that it will. Which you get that every year at St. Therese. At least, I can speak from my own experience. But I think that it'll be even more so this year. And I can't say that I exactly know why. I just kind of have a gut feeling on it. Yeah, and I'm looking forward to that, just because we will be spending so much time with each other, and really taking this on as a family, as a lot of people have over the last several months. A lot of people having to go back home and school ending early and stuff like that. I think this time there's a lot of graces to be found in the family spirit. And for challenges, I think it just comes down to challenge of everyday life, like just being with people in their imperfection and having other people see you in your weaknesses, and just learning how to love each other in that. And learning how to love yourself in that too. I think that'll be a challenge, but something that I think we always encounter in life.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well, it's funny that you actually mentioned the family spirit. Because one of the things at the beginning of this COVID-19 pandemic, which was a real poverty, was the fact that suddenly I wasn't able to go around and see all my friends. Like, I have a very good community here in the small town of Bruno, where St. Therese is, but I just wasn't able to see them for a month or two. But one of the unexpected things that came from that is my wife and I, and our little daughter at the time, we ended up being closer than we'd ever been before, And so I think that's an example of grace, And I'd say that if the pandemic hadn't happened, we wouldn't be as close as a family as we are now, Sure, there'd be other ways we'd be close, but we would probably be much the same spiritual and relational level. So I think that's like one small example of how with every single poverty that God can turn it into a blessing. And that's a really good illustration. Well, I think that's just probably getting close to the end of this conversation for now. It was just supposed to be a very short one and such. But yeah, thanks for coming on, Gabby. And we're going to be sending out this podcast probably to all the incoming students so that they can be introduced to one of our incoming stays, which is all fun. But we at St. Therese Institute, we're really looking forward to this coming year, and we're also feeling a bit of a sense of solidarity, because I think every single institution, including Catholic institutions, for this coming September regarding education and formation, they're all feeling something of the same crunch, uncertainties, not really knowing what's coming, figuring out staff arrangements and all the rest. And it's a challenging year, but it's going to be a challenging year, let me rephrase that. But I think that in the middle of it all, we're going to see some pretty abundant graces. Yeah. And I think that's the sense that we're having here at St. Therese Institute. And we will trust in God and hope for the rest. So anyways, thank you so much, Gabby.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Yeah, I know, and who knows, you might show up here on here one time again. And thanks to all those who have tuned in for us. This has been a Little Wayward podcast, where we do little very well.